Good evening, and yes, it's that time again, the time when the carcass of the cinema year lies prostrate before us, not unlike the post-Christmas turkey, and we all gather round to pick the bones. What kind of a year has it been? Well, not bad, but also not great. In the course of it, Tom Hanks got lucky again, Kevin Costner didn't, and Hugh Grant discovered that divine intervention is not necessarily all it's cracked up to be. Now, as usual, during this traditional amble through the seasons, I'll be highlighting in strictly chronological order the 10 films that have pleased or impressed me most. So let's get that process immediately underway with an excellent British offering, Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave, an imaginative thriller in which three young people, Kerry Fox, Christopher Eccleston and Ewan McGregor, are plunged into greed, peril and murder when their lodger dies, leaving a suitcase stuffed with money under the bed.
It's all right, it's just a pigeon. Well, isn't up here? Tell him to look for the money. Don't worry, it's exactly what I'm doing. It's not up here. He has eaten it.
Looking for me?
The early part of the year gave us a couple of big movies that didn't quite live up to expectations. Tom Cruise in Interview with a Vampire and Anthony Hopkins in The Road to Wellville, Alan Parker's scatological saga of flatulence, bladders, bowels and cornflakes. Oliver Stone's much-hyped Natural-Born Killers was dazzling in parts, but only in parts. Gus Van Sant revealed that even cowgirls get the blues, which was only fair because so did everyone who saw it. On the other hand, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman from Taiwan, La Reine Margot from France, and from India, Shekhar Kapoor's Bandit Queen were excellent. Also on the plus side were the New Zealand film Heavenly Creatures, the true story of two teenage girls who conspired to murder the mother of one of them. Ralph Fiennes in Quiz Show, and Meryl Streep as Action Woman in The River Wild. But for the second film in my top 10, I choose The Shawshank Redemption, an extraordinary prison drama with fine performances by Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman.
I understand you're a man that knows how to get things.
I'm known to locate certain things from time to time.
I wonder if you might get me a rock hammer.
What?
A rock hammer.
What is it and why?
What do you care?
Well, if it was a toothbrush, I wouldn't ask questions. I'd just quote a price. But then a toothbrush is a non-lethal object, isn't it?
Fair enough. Rock hammer's about 6 or 7 inches long. Looks like a miniature pickaxe.
Pickaxe?
For rocks.
Rocks. Quartz?
Quartz. Some mica. Shale. Limestone.
So?
So I'm a rock hound. At least I was in my old life. I'd like to be again on a limited basis.
Or maybe you'd like to sink your toe into somebody's skull.
No, sir. No, I have no enemies here.
No? Wait a while. Word gets around. The sisters have taken quite a liking to you. Especially Boggs.
I don't suppose it would help any if I explained to them I'm not homosexual.
Neither are they. They have to be human first. They don't qualify.
March got off to a bad start with Pret-a-Porter, Robert Altman's sprawling, shapeless look at the Paris fashion scene. Still, things perked up quite considerably with Winona Ryder and Susan Sarandon in a thoughtful new version of Little Women, the absorbing American basketball documentary Hoop Dreams, and for hopeless insomniacs, a touch of history when, for the first time, the BBC broadcast the Oscars live from Hollywood. There'll be more about the Oscars in our movie news compilation, but damn it, I won't let this moment pass without saying that to give the award for Best Picture to Forrest Gump instead of Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction was fatuous, and that to name Tom Hanks Best Actor for playing the eponymous, intellectually challenged Gump was grossly unfair on Nigel Hawthorne, whose performance in my next choice, The Madness of King George, was infinitely more subtle.
You're right then, let's be having you. Elbow people, knee gentlemen, bending persons, hand kissers. Ah. Fine cluster there, eh? Come on, look, come on. You might learn something. Good ass, too. And warm, eh? I'll bet. And what brings you to Windsor, sire?
I had heard Your Majesty was indisposed, but I see it thus.
Indisposed?
Is there anywhere I can assist?
Want to hump the old bird out of the nest, is that it?
Oh, sir, there may be responsibilities that I could share.
Want to get your fat hands on government, is that it? Well, I'm old and infirm. I'll not trouble you long.
I wish you the best of health, Father.
Wish me, wish me. You wish me death, you plump little cuckoo.
Hush, Father, hush.
Hush. Hush! You dare to stop the King of England from speaking his mind? You for God's sake, you killed him! Shoot the air out of you! Let me at it!
It was something he ate.
If I'd been an Academy member, I'd have voted early and voted often for Hawthorne, but alas, it was not to be. Now, though, pause while we look at your choice of the best films of the year. Here it is, 1995's box office top 10 in Britain. At 10, Waterworld, Kevin Costner's financial fiasco, which actually did a lot better than predicted. At 9, Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey scored again with this mindless but very funny road movie. At 8, Pocahontas, this revisionist view of the young Indian princess, provided Disney with its annual hit. 7, Stargate, James Spader and Kurt Russell in a sci-fi adventure set in ancient Egypt, or somewhere similar anyway. At 6, Die Hard with a Vengeance, action man Bruce Willis back doing what he does best, ably assisted by Samuel L. Jackson. And 5, Interview with the Vampire, Tom Cruise as you've never seen him before, homoerotic for a start. 4, Apollo 13, Tom Hanks gets lost in space but finds a spot very near the top of the box office. And 3, Braveheart, Mel Gibson dons a kilt and a Scottish accent to direct and star in an impressive epic. At 2, Casper the Friendly Ghost, an unexpectedly huge success, aided by the excellent Christina Ricci. But the #1 film is Batman Forever, with a Caped Crusader, this time in the shape of Val Kilmer, taking nearly £20 million at the box office. And so to the spring, when the bittersweet Australian comedy Muriel's Wedding proved a crowd pleaser. Liam Neeson was Rob Roy with a humour bypass, and I found much to admire in Roman Polanski's Death and the Maiden. However, during the course of the year, duty obliges me to converse with all manner of mummers, vagabonds and strolling players. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. And here now is a selection of some of the people to whom I courteously lent an ear.
I think at their best, actors are the most generous, the kindest, the greatest people, and at their worst, they are vain, greedy and insecure.
Is that nice, that sense of power?
Yeah, I'll tell you the really good thing, the best thing about it is that
I found is that sometimes if things don't work, a lot of times we have the ability to go back and every movie I've done, I've always done reshoots on things, which is that is a great luxury.
I was going to ask you about the disadvantages as well as the advantages of being married to Tom Cruise. Do you actually have to try harder?
Well, the advantage is I get to go to bed with Tom Cruise every night. The disadvantage is, you know, you're viewed not as an individual a lot of the time, and so that's something that I've been working on.
There is a school of thought with regards to film criticism which crosses the line from reviewing and a point of view to being petulant and personal, and I think that's wrong.
Are you tempted in any way to give up Europe and go over to Hollywood and just sort of drive for the top, as it were, there?
No. No, I'm quite happy living in Europe. I've never been very good at living in America. The joke wears off after a few weeks, you know.
You were the highest-grossing woman star in America last year at the box office, is that right?
Yes, I was.
Oh, this must give you a lot of clout, doesn't it?
I would hope, but it doesn't. I keep waiting for someone to offer me $12 million, but no one has.
Tomorrow I have the gun, and I have the goal. Today it's just Joe and myself.
I don't get no gun, I don't get no girl. All I get is this car.
And a furry hat.
The furry hat.
Obviously, I mean, you have a long personal and professional relationship with Woody Allen,
Sure.
being director himself.
Yeah.
Did he influence you at all?
Well, I think, you know, anybody you're around, I hope some of it rubbed off. I really do. He's in a different league.
My box office dropped 15 years ago. I never did well at the box office, and, you know, I did the exact same today, last year, the year before, and 15 years ago. I've always had a problem getting big audiences.
Well, Woody Allen's presence there brings me very neatly to the fourth of my top 10 films, Bullets Over Broadway, written and directed, of course, by W. Allen. A gloriously funny period piece that mixes bootleggers with backstage drama and explores the drastic lengths to which an artist will go to protect his integrity.
One thing I was wondering is who's gonna be playing the part of Sylvia Poston?
Only Helen Sinclair.
Helen Sinclair? I never heard of her.
You follow the theater?
What are you trying to insinuate?
Hey, don't give me that shit. You tell Masucci you don't play ball, I'll come down and I'll chop his legs off.
Don't you pay any attention to Nick. He's in one of his depressed moods.
I'll cut his throat, I'll come down there, I'll pull his guts out through his windpipe. You hear me?
What'd you do, walk up? You're sweating like a pig.
I have a bit of a situation now and again.
Blood sugar?
You, Olive,
What?
you like to play? Yeah?
It's sad.
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
I'll say. But I got some ideas how we can goose it up.
Ideas?
I go to the movies all the time. I got a million clever ideas.
You burn it down, Cheech. Burn it down, I said. I want it to look like arson.
I got a
Right.
Crick?
in my everything's tight. I think maybe we should.
Oh, no, don't go. Hey, Venus, let's go with that hooch.
Olive, when did you get interested in acting?
Hey, listen. You think I came to this town to swing it around in a chorus line? Tits and ass, that's all they care about. Thank you. Hey, didn't I tell you to make horse stirrers?
I don't make nothing out of horses, especially horse stirrers, because I don't know what they are, and neither do you.
And now a question. What do all these have in common? Liza Minnelli, Barbara Streisand, Glenn Close, Greta Scacchi, Helena Bonham Carter and Michelle Pfeiffer. Well, I'll tell you, at one time or another they were all going to play Evita, but then elbowed the idea. And what do they not have in common with Madonna? Simply that she is going to play Evita, directed by Alan Parker, it says here. But back to the top 10. At the Cannes Film Festival, and no, the weather wasn't awfully good actually, though thank you for asking. It even rained at times, would you believe? At Cannes, I caught up with one of the year's unexpected delights, a most superior thriller called The Usual Suspects. Devious plot and excellent ensemble are playing, with Gabriel Byrne giving certainly his best performance in a Hollywood film.
I got a ton of work and I don't have any good people. Not like you guys.
What's the job?
This is a jeweler out of Texas named Saul. He rents a suite in some downtown hotel. Does free appraisals for people. Sometimes he buys, sometimes he doesn't. Anyway, the word is he carries around a lot of cash. So I figure I keep the merchandise, you keep the green. Simple.
What about security?
A couple of bodyguards, nothing you couldn't handle.
Give me time to check it out.
Expect nothing less from you, man.
Good to see you.
Good
We'll
to
call
see
you.
you too.
All right.
Enjoy LA, huh? Get yourself laid.
Hey, a friend of mine in New York tells me that you know that you knew Spook Hoss.
Well, the way I hear it, you did time with old Spook. Good man, wasn't he? I used to run dope for him. Too bad he got shivved.
Yeah. I shipped him. Better you hear it from me now than from somebody else later.
I appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, was it business and personal?
Bit of both.
And so began the long, hot summer, heralded as ever by the arrival of those box office birds of prey, the so-called blockbusters. There was Val Kilmer in Batman Forever, which sometimes felt like it, though it did break a box office record set by Jurassic Park when it took £1,200,000 on its opening day. Then, too, we had Bruce Willis and Jeremy Irons in Die Hard with a Vengeance, Sean Connery and Richard Gere in First Night, which wasn't really good enough to deserve a second night, Sylvester Stallone in Judge Dredd, and of course there was Kevin Costner's notorious Waterworld, after which Costner might well drop the second syllable of his name. Its budget almost submerged Hollywood, though Kevin Costner maintains indignantly that it wasn't anything like the reputed $185 million, merely a modest $175 million. If you reviewed the ridiculous budget, Waterworld was a disaster, but to be fair, if you reviewed the film itself, it wasn't at all bad. Indeed, it's already taken $243 million worldwide. Given that a film usually has to take 3 times its production cost to break even, Waterworld only has about $300 million to go. Chicken feed that? Well, it probably is to Kevin Costner. Still, here's some more of the year's movie news. In February, after much media hype and cautious dithering by the British Board of Film Classification, Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers was finally given an 18 certificate. And wonder of wonders, in May, Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs was belatedly granted a video classification. Christopher Reeve, star of Superman, tragically fell from his horse in May, leaving him paralysed from the neck downwards. After intensive therapy, he's determined to walk again. The Oscars were predictably a triumph for Forrest Gump, which won 6 awards from 13 nominations. Quentin Tarantino won Best Original Screenplay with Pulp Fiction, and Britain's The Madness of King George was shamefully under-rewarded with only 1 Oscar for Best Production Design. Other British winners were Elton John and Tim Rice, Best Soundtrack for The Lion King, and the animators Alison Snowden and David Fine, who won with Bob's Birthday. Britain had a strong presence at Cannes, where Helen Mirren was named Best Actress for The Madness of King George, and the Best Actor prize went to Jonathan Pryce for his role as Lytton Strachey in Carrington. The Palme d'Or went to Bosnian director Emir Kusturica for his film Underground. The film world did well in the Queen's Honours List. Producer David Putnam was knighted, as was that backstage pillar of the industry, Sidney Samuelson. Director Alan Parker was given a CBE, and Norman Wisdom, now 80, was awarded an OBE. Richard Branson's Virgin Group took control of the MGM cinema chain. Is Branson now set on becoming a movie mogul? And is there no limit to his ambitions? Marlon Brando, Johnny Depp found themselves out of work when their film Divine Rapture folded in Ireland due to lack of money, and they all had to slink off home. Leavesden Aerodrome, the studio complex and main location for the latest Bond film GoldenEye, is to be turned into a family entertainment park and studio tour with a £200 million investment from the Malaysian-based Third Millennium Studios. A kind of Universal Studio Tour in Watford? Now there's glamour for you. O.J. Simpson astonishingly walked free after a murder trial which often seemed no less farcical than the Naked Gun films in which he featured, thus proving that for movie stars there usually is a happy ending, no matter what the early part of the script might suggest. And now a sad farewell to the good and the famous. It was also in the summer that poor Hugh Grant was caught in a car in Beverly Hills and in flagrante delicto with a most accommodating lady of the night called Divine Brown. Well, there's a mouthful for you. And it could have ruined his career, but Grant handled his public apology with such grace and charm that the incident actually worked to his advantage by drawing attention away from his first Hollywood film, 9 Months, which, through no fault of his, was bloody awful. Meanwhile, as the sun shone, the more earnest business of filmmaking continued on location everywhere. And from time to time, we went to have a look. John Cleese reassembled the Fish Called Wanda team for a new comedy, Fierce Creatures. Pinewood's Back Lot played host to a huge zoo set, complete with lions and tigers. The film will be released in the spring. Emma Thompson adapted and stars in the film version of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, which also stars Hugh Grant and Alan Rickman. UK release is due in February '96. Shakespeare made a comeback this summer. Ian McKellen and Annette Bening starred in a 30s version of Richard III, with McKellen playing the king as a fascist dictator in a Europe of rising civil unrest. And Lawrence Fishburne and Kenneth Branagh went off to Italy to film Othello with first-time director Oliver Parker. Branagh plays the devious Iago and Fishburne the tragic noble Moor. Bob Hoskins and Gerard Depardieu spent the summer at Ealing Studios in an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's novel The Secret Agent. Hoskins is also executive producer, and Christopher Hampton of Carrington fame directed. The aforementioned Carrington turned up in September and was notable mainly for the splendid Jonathan Pryce. Then too we had The Quick and the Dead, acting provided by Gene Hackman, Tight Trousers by Sharon Stone, Peter Chelsome's intriguing Funny Bones, Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep in The Bridges of Madison County, a love story for holders of bus passes, the tediously garrulous Billy Crystal in Forget Paris, and my next choice, Mel Gibson's stirring Scottish epic Braveheart, the story of William Wallace's rebellion against King Edward I.
Sir William, inasmuch as you and your captains hail from a region long known to support the Balliol clan, may we invite you to continue your support and uphold our rightful claim?
Damn the Balliol clan! I don't want
Gentlemen, now is the time to declare a king.
Wait! Then you're prepared to recognize our legitimate succession, are you?
You're the ones who won't support the rightful claim.
Those were lies when you first spoke.
Oh, no, that's true. I demand recognition of these documents.
These documents were lies when you wrote them.
We have beaten the English, but they'll come back. Because you won't stand together.
What will you do?
I will invade England and defeat the English on their own ground.
Invade? That's impossible.
Why? Why is that impossible? You're so concerned with squabbling for the scraps from Longshank's table that you've missed your God-given right to something better. There's a difference between us. You think the people of this country exist to provide you with position. I think your position exists to provide those people with freedom. And I go to make sure that they have it.
Oscar nominations coming up for Gibson? Could be. But now another break while we nip across to Los Angeles for Tom Brooks' overview of the film year in America.
This year, American cinemas have offered audiences an unusually large number of films, well in excess of 300 pictures. But only a few of the big Hollywood studio releases seem to have delivered true satisfaction.
Most of the movies I've enjoyed recently have been foreign films, like Muriel's Wedding from Australia, which is brilliant, and Shallow Grave, which is a Scottish film. There are a couple other movies, but none of them were mainstream, regular Hollywood movies. And I'm not some art house freak, granola type who only wants to watch, organic movies that aren't, made out of the mass-produced factory kind of Hollywood assembly line. But there really isn't much interesting.
There haven't been any movies that I've seen that I can say I really enjoyed, that I talk about to all my friends. That hasn't been happening this year.
I just think Hollywood's gotten too lazy. They think that if they can package something with a lot of special effects, that it's going to be something that the public buys automatically.
Hi, good evening. It's Entertainment Data.
Okay, GoldenEye 276.
Okay.
Jumanji 776.
Every day, Entertainment Data Incorporated calls up cinemas to track box office. Despite what moviegoers say about the quality of films, 1995 looks set to break domestic box office records. But it's the performance of Hollywood films overseas this year that's caused most excitement.
The international box office has been really exploding. It's been climbing at a much faster revenue pace than the U.S. It's far more important now than it used to be, and it continues to grow that way.
Online.
The increased importance of the overseas market has placed a premium on those Hollywood actors with international appeal. This year, Sylvester Stallone, even though his films did poorly in America, signed a $60 million three-picture deal. Now, everyone from Jim Carrey to Harrison Ford, who's starring in a remake of the romantic comedy Sabrina, is getting paid a staggering $20 million a picture.
I think that we offer a service that is of value. I won't sit here and debate the value of this service, but it's up to the buyer, really, to determine the value of the service. They don't need to pay what they don't feel is a fair price.
The high salaries of movie stars have helped push up the average cost of films to more than $50 million. What's worried Tinseltown is that this year several extremely expensive pictures failed at the box office. Movies like Assassins, which cost $60 million, as well as the big-budget Strange Days.
This year has been unlike any other in that more big-budget, highly promoted, big-star, top-dollar movies have not only failed at the box office, they haven't had opening weekends, they haven't had opening days.
On a brighter note, 1995 has at least witnessed an improvement in the fortunes of women in Hollywood. We're not talking of a major feminist revolution here, just the fact that over the last few months, women have increased their presence both in front of the camera and behind it.
That foreground action is really nice, but it needs to happen closer to when he actually comes out.
Not only have more women directed films this year, but there have also been several pictures that deal with women bonding. Among them, How to Make an American Quilt, and Waiting to Exhale, which stars Whitney Houston and Angela Bassett. Another trend of 1995 was a cinematic fascination with Las Vegas, with the dark side of the American dream. Martin Scorsese's Casino chronicled mobster life in Vegas. Mike Figgis's Leaving Las Vegas and Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls were also set in Vegas. Showgirls, one of the most sexually explicit films ever released by Hollywood, was a spectacular failure at the box office.
We'd like to believe that the audience rose up morally and said, you know what, this is sleazy, and we're not interested in seeing women portrayed this way, and please take this away. But it was also a very bad movie. So I'm not sure exactly what we can conclude from that.
It's holiday time in Hollywood, and the town is already full of Oscar talk. Everyone thinks Apollo 13 will get nominated. Oliver Stone's Nixon, with Sir Anthony Hopkins playing America's most infamous president, is also thought likely to get Academy attention. But it's a film packed full of British talent, Emma Thompson's adaptation of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, that many film industry insiders predict as the picture most likely to emerge as one of next year's strongest Oscar night contenders.
Well, nice if Hopkins and Thompson got the nod there, wouldn't it? Well, as summer faded into autumn, Disney provided a politically correct Pocahontas. Terence Davis's first American film, The Neon Bible, was a thumping letdown. Steven Seagal moved, his worst enemy wouldn't accuse him of acting, through Under Siege 2, and Nicole Kidman scored a big hit as the ruthless TV weather girl in To Die For. And then there was Tom Hanks, apparently making his bid for a third successive Oscar nomination as the commander of Apollo 13, a very well-made account of the ill-fated moonshot, which grabbed and held the attention, even though we all knew going in how it would turn out. So that's my next choice.
The deadly CO2 gas is literally poisoning the astronauts with every breath in and out.
Heads up, heads up.
And spokespeople will not comment further.
Go. Heads up, people. Look out now.
What's this?
That's what they gotta make.
One sock.
Once you have the sock in place, we're gonna want you to bungee the entire filter assembly to the bulkhead, right above the limb can.
We're getting close to 15.
Houston, filters in place.
Roger, 13.
Suit circuit relief to close. CO2 canister, select secondary. All right. Here goes.
I can hear air moving.
Just breathe normal, fellas.
Aquarius, please advise on CO2 status.
Yeah, Houston, we're taking a look at those numbers right now.
We're still holding close to 15, Houston. Roger that, standing by.
Houston, the CO2 level has dropped to 9, and it is still falling.
Yes. Good job. That is good to hear, Aquarius. And you, sir, are a steely-eyed missile man.
With Apollo 13 following Forrest Gump and Philadelphia, Tom Hanks is probably the most bankable star in Hollywood. I imagine every script crossing any other actor's desk these days has already got Hanks's fingerprints on it. So he's all right, way up on top and probably practicing weightlifting with his Oscars. But for other people, 1995 has been very much an up and down year. Among those who've risen to the high end of the seesaw, I would nominate Sandra Bullock, a supporting actress in Speed last year, but this year's star of While You Were Sleeping and The Net. Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber, not him. He followed his co-starring role in Batman Forever by trousering $20 million for Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. Meryl Streep emerged strongly from a few lean years as the doughty heroine of The River Wild and the love-struck matron of The Bridges of Madison County. Nicole Kidman got out from under the shadow of husband Tom Cruise to do herself a lot of good in Batman Forever and To Die For. And British actress Julia Ormond showed upward mobility with Legends of the Fall, First Night and Captives. All right, maybe the films weren't so great, but that's a lot of work for 1 year. However, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and as some rose like a lark, others went down like a rock. For instance, Hugh Grant, who really didn't have a very nice year. An Awfully Big Adventure and The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain were all right, but 9 months was a stinker. He'll be back, I've no doubt of that, but right now it could be that Divine Brown was the best thing that happened to him in 1995. Kevin Costner made Waterworld, and if that wasn't enough, his wife left him. What more trouble does a man need? Macaulay Culkin, who flopped as Richie Rich, has hit that rotten age, 15, when he's too old to play little boys and far too young to play romantic leads. Sylvester Stallone had 2 monumental clinkers in Judge Dredd and The Specialist. And so did Sharon Stone, who was in not only The Specialist, but also The Quick and the Dead, a double whammy. Yet, you know, the French have now declared both Stone and Stallone to be Chevalier of the Arts. Whatever would they get if they made decent films? The Legion of Honor and Across Knife and Fork in the Michelin Guide? However, let's for a moment consider the film year from Britain's point of view. On the whole, it's been not at all bad. I've already mentioned the likes of Shallow Grave, The Madness of King George, Funny Bones and Carrington, and there have been several others worthy of attention. Priest and ID, for instance, Black Beauty, Kenneth Branagh's In the Bleak Midwinter. Production has been vigorous and a lot of it has been good. In the summer, the government announced its plans to aid the industry. Notably, £80 million of lottery money spread over the next 5 years. Sounds magnanimous, doesn't it? But what it amounts to is £16 million a year, and £16 million is not much more than Jim Carrey's asking price and a lot less than the cost of an average Hollywood comedy. Britain can and should compete in the international market, but not on money like that. What is needed is a much greater incentive to investors, tax breaks for instance. Nevertheless, some British filmmakers, Ken Loach for example, worked miracles on shoestring budgets, and it's Loach's magnificent study of the Spanish Civil War, Land and Freedom, that comes next in my top 10.
¡Tú, marioneta de Stalin! ¡Aquí las milicias estaban! ¡A la división Carlos Marx! ¿Y tú qué, al tercio y titella? No, cabrón! La de l'Urruti, la millor! Si no sabeu distingir l'enemic, què foteu, esteu bojos? No és veritat, perquè heu traït la causa revolucionària! Això és mentida! Heu estat vosaltres en trencar la unitat antifeixista! Bollocks! A stupid offense, you don't say! You English? Yeah, you! Where are you from? Manchester! I'm from Liverpool! What are you doing here? Don't know. Why aren't you over here with us? Why aren't you over here with us? Don't know. Heu la menjar fascista! Què esteu cuinant, cabrons? Mongetes amb botifarra! Que teniu gana? I tant, i tant! Doncs aquí teniu una! No más. ¿Por qué? Nunca. Es un enemigo. Imposible. Enemigo.
Land of Freedom has recently won the European Film Academy's Felix Award as Film of the Year, and yet it got far less distribution in Britain than, for instance, The Awful 9 Months. Well, up to now, I've been more or less concentrating on the swans, but what about the turkeys, the duds, the deficient and the defective, the rickety and the ramshackle, the cinematic lead balloons? What follows is a list of the worst films of the year, collated by the entire Film 95 team and presented in ascending order of lack of merit. At 10, Jade, writer Joe Esterhazy's sexual fantasies woven into a dim but horny thriller. 9, Mortal Kombat, based on a video game which is infinitely better acted. 8, The Quick and the Dead, Sharon Stone's western, not very quick, but very, very dead. 7, The Steal, Alfred Molina and Helen Slater in an alleged comedy from which some cad seems to have cut out all the jokes. At 6, Richie Rich, Macaulay Culkin in presumably his childhood swan song. So long, Mac, it's been great. Well, sort of. 5, even cowgirls get the blues, and with this script, who could blame them? 4, First Night, Sean Connery as a strangely Scottish King Arthur, Richard Gere as the deadly itinerant sword fighter Lancelot the Kid. And 3, Exquisite Tenderness, exquisitely awful tale of a serial killer loose in a hospital. 2, to Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and to Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes, Thanks for Nothing. But at number 1, 9 Months, The Turkey's Turkey, though I shall say no more because poor Hugh Grant has suffered enough. Well, as the year neared its end, we had a very impressive French film, La Haine, set in a harshly vivid contemporary Paris, and Michael Douglas and Annette Bening in the charming romantic comedy The American President. Against that, we had Roland Joffe's unhappily dud version of Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, which gave a tragedy a happy ending, flopped dismally in America, crept unheralded into Britain, and proved that when Demi Moore is dressed from head to toe, even in designer pilgrim outfits from some trendy 17th century boutique, she makes about as much impact as a tailor's dummy on Prozac. Ah well, on to my penultimate film of the night, Zhang Yimou's Shanghai Triad, a remarkable, thoughtful and vivid study of gang warfare in Shanghai in the late 1930s. Now, of course, at this time of the year, there's a lot of films around that are aimed at the holiday market, the Santa Claus, the Indian in the Cupboard, and the very feeble Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. We also had a new James Bond, Pierce Brosnan in GoldenEye, which, defiantly old-fashioned though it is, still raked in £3,600,000 on its opening weekend. But much better than any of those, indeed one of the best films of the year, is Babe, the story of a pig that thinks it's a sheepdog. It's funny, charming, touching, and blends live action, animals and animatronics so skillfully that you simply can't see the joins, and that's why it completes my list of the 10 best.
What's got into you all of a sudden? I just got finished telling what a nice young pig you be.
Ma, I was just trying to be a sheepdog.
Huh, enough wolves in the world already. Without a nice lad like you turning nasty. You haven't got it in you, young'un.
You and I are descended from the great sheepdogs. We carry the bloodline of the ancient Bahu. We stand for something. And today I watched in shame as all that was betrayed.
Rex, dear, he's just a little pig.
All the greater the insult.
I'm sorry I bit you. Are you all right?
Well, I wouldn't call that a bite myself. You got teeth in that floppy mouth of yours or just gums?
You see, ladies, a heart of gold. No need for all this wolf nonsense, young'un. All a nice little pig like you need do is ask.
Thanks very much. It was very kind of a pleasure. What a nice little pig.
Now there's a film that really brings home the bacon, if Babe will forgive the painful allusion. And that's it. On reflection, I admit it's not a scintillating list, but then it's not been a scintillating year. More style than substance, more hype than excellence. Nevertheless, though there may not be any great films in my selection, there's a lot of very good ones. And if by now you can't remember exactly what my choice was, well, here's a reminder, in no particular order of merit. Shallow Grave, Shawshank Redemption, The Madness of King George, Bullets Over Broadway, The Usual Suspects, Braveheart, Apollo 13, Land and Freedom, Shanghai Triad, and Babe. And that's all for this year. I'll be back on January the 8th with a new series which, after much debate, we're seriously thinking of calling Film 96. But for the moment, as I leave you with this montage of the movies of 1995, may all of us here wish all of you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. Goodbye.
BBC Two, in just over 5 minutes, follows the making of a movie masterpiece as Francis Coppola battles typhoons, wars and a host of other problems, filming Apocalypse Now.
This Christmas, take a front row seat for the best in music. The Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge Tour, New Year's Day, 11:35 on BBC One.
Are you feeling good now? Dustin Hoffman stars as an ageing raconteur now on BBC One, telling stories of the Wild West as Little Big Man.